Hi, I'm Kim Nicoletti, and I teach creative writing at BreckCreate. We do some fiction classes, some nonfiction classes, adults, kids, and any level, intermediate, beginner, or advanced. And I also do some jewelry wire wrapping pendant classes, and we're doing some online crafting things that you could do at home. So here's something that you could do. It's a glow-in-the-dark jar, and unfortunately I can't show you it glowing in the dark, but it looks really cool once it does. And all you need for this is an empty jar. It can be small, it can be large, it could be a baby jar. I was thinking of little baby jars that you put together in a line. That would be really nice, like with a wire and string across. And then you'll want some glow-in-the-dark paint. This happens to be Craft Smart from Michael's. I got it online and I got it sent to me. And it's nice too if you could have 2 or 3 different colors of glow-in-the-dark paint, like blue and yellow, but I just opted for yellow because I like the simplistic look. And then from there, these are the 2 basic things plus a paintbrush, usually a thin paintbrush, but it could be wide like this too. These are the only 3 things you need for this. Now, if you want to adorn it, of course, you'll want some fabric or some paper, and I'll show that to you. I happen to have some silver glitter confetti things, so I put them on an old t-shirt that I cut up, and I just tied a ribbon around it. And then, if you want, depending on how big your jar is, for this, I have a little figurine that I can glue in there. And so, that way it's kind of interesting during the daytime and during the nighttime. But if you have any pieces of scrap fabric or just ribbon or even really literally tissue paper or Kleenex or paper, we can make some interesting things to go into a larger jar or a smaller jar depending on what you're doing. So let's go ahead and get started. So to start your glow project, you want to shake up your glow paint, and I'm going to make a bigger one here. And if you want tinier little dots, you'll use a smaller kind of brush. And the first thing you want to do is start on the bottom, and you just want to make random dots. You can also draw a star, and the first star is going to dry, so you can be a little inexact with it, because you'll probably want to put a second coat on the larger things that you do. As this paint dries, it loses some of its glow properties, which is why you actually want to make dots that are 3-dimensional, so big globs of paint. That doesn't mean you need to make big globs of circles, but it does mean that you want to get a lot of paint down on the brush, and like I say, you could make random little lines like I did right there. It's all your creativity, it's all your design. The reason we're starting at the bottom first is because my brush can easily accidentally touch the side, and we don't want to mess up our sides if we've already done our sides. So that's why we're doing the bottom first, and then we're working our way up. So depending on how it's easiest for you, you can position the jar sideways. You might want to make some more stars. You can even get really creative and scientific and look up a constellation and create a constellation. The Big Dipper is pretty simple. Now, this star that I just made, I'm showing you that this is going to be too thin. We'll let it dry, and I'll show you how it's going to be too thin. It looks like there's enough glow paint on there right now, but as it dries, it becomes very thin and you're not going to be able to see it glow. So just remember that anywhere you put paint, it's going to glow, unless you don't put enough paint and it dries really thin, then it also is not going to glow. And we're just going to continue around. So if I wanted to do, let's say, the Big Dipper from my memory, we will just do a rectangle and then the 3 dots. I encourage you to have a lot of fun with this, be creative, not necessarily just put little dots everywhere, which you can do, but it's also fun to have a Big Dipper or something that creates some focal points in this. And as you can see, this very thin paintbrush can hold a lot of paint. So I can really get quite a bit of paint in there. And you want to paint bottom edge. Don't worry about the lip of the jar because we're gonna it's gonna be covered with the lid. So don't worry about that part, but up until the very lid, you wanna get even below the lip there. And some of these dots I'm making bigger. Some of them I'm making tinier. Depends a little bit. Just creating a really beautiful random pattern with, like I say, some very interesting constellations, or you might even want to make a little spiral. I have a lot of paint on my brush, so this spiral might be a little bigger than I want it to be, but so thinking about what you see in the night sky and just little depictions of that. And then I'm going to want to, as you can see, maybe my star is starting to dry, so I'm just going to go over that and reinforce it with much more paint so that the paint has enough surface and enough thickness so it can really charge in the sunshine and glow really nice in the dark. Okay, so this is kind of an idea of what we're looking at, and you would just continue to fill this entire jar like I did with this one. Now with this one you can see probably that some of these still need more paint. So I'm going to reinforce the paint. So that it really glows when it's time for it to shine. Okay. So you'll just have to see how your paint dries. If it looks like you need some more paint, go ahead and reinforce that. If not, like this spiral will definitely need some more paint. Reinforce that. And once you're all done and you've got the entire jar covered the way you want it to be covered, then you go and you start making little interesting things inside. Now you could just call it a day. This could just be your jar, and we'll do the lid in a minute or two, but this could be it. Or you could, I have some different ribbons. I have this thing. So I might, and I even have just a piece of tissue paper, which looks really boring and really weird, but if I want it to hang, I take my tissue paper and I'm twisting it up. You can also just do this with regular paper. And then take your tape and tape it so that it's folded, and then it's gonna hang down. So right now it's going upward at us, but it's gonna hang down. Same with this piece of string or ribbon. And before it's easiest to put the glow in the dark paint on the ribbon. You can color the entire thing with paint, or you can just make the dots, however you want to do it. It doesn't show up very well until it's glowing in the dark. So it might be a bit of a surprise, a little fun surprise too. That's what's fun about art, is always just seeing what occurs that you didn't plan or didn't see. And then I'm going to take this, and same thing. I'm just going to tape it with Scotch tape so that you won't be able to see the tape, but you will be able to see this string hanging down. And right now it's not going to stand up like the paper is, but when we put it in, it's going to. And let's see, if I had this, I might also do a similar thing where I cut a piece, and I would say make them different lengths and even make them different widths so that it creates some interest. And with this, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go like this. Okay. And I'm going to put my paint on here. This one I might do just like little lines and stripes and dots. Whatever your creativity tells you. And again, with this, we didn't paint this. So you can either paint it after you've taped it or before you taped it. Remember that you're going to see 360 degrees around this, so you probably want to paint both sides of the ribbon and paint both sides of the tissue paper or fabric that you're having hang down. Again, this isn't necessary, it's just a little more of a creative flair. And you can always, the nice thing about this is you can always take it off because it's taped. So it's a very small commitment. And I might put, 2 more in here if I wanted to, maybe 2 longer ones. So then, hopefully you can see that, when I screw the lid on, it's hanging. And there's these hanging things in here, okay? Okay. And like I said, if you have a little figurine that you can put in here, that's to size. Obviously this little girl's probably not quite to scale, but we could do it if we wanted to. We could glue her right in the bottom there with some hot glue. All right, and now we're going to do a fabric piece for the top. And for that, all I'm going to do is just take a Sharpie, and I'm going to add a little bit more for my lip. Now I have a really nice black lip here, so I might even just want that to show. But if I didn't want it to show, then I would make my line a little wider, okay? And again, you can use a compass if you want, but it's really easy to eyeball this and just mark it so that you have a circle, and you can see the circle that you're going to cut out. And I have a cutout circle already, and I'm actually just going to do it on this jar because that's what the circle is cut out for. So here's my circle. This was just an old t-shirt that I wasn't using, and I thought the blue would look nice with the glow in the dark. So I'm just going to put plenty of glue on here. And I'm also going to put glue around the lip of it. And then I'm just going to take my finger, smear it around, make it nice and even and smooth so that you get this smooth appearance and you don't have lumps in your fabric. And then you just place it right on top. Make sure that you have it nice and tight so that there's no little bumps or lumps. And then use your rag to get your glue off of your fingers. And then for this one that I showed you earlier, I just simply put a ribbon around it. Just make a simple knot with a bow. And sometimes it's easier if somebody can help you out. So if you're doing this with your friends or your parent or your kids, help each other out. Your bow will probably be a little nicer that way. But you can fiddle with the bow. And then for this particular one, and I might even, I have some silver, so I might have even just used the silver because then the glow, the dark, that kind of goes very nice. And then I have these pieces of confetti that I found, and they're little stars. So I would just glue the stars on. Real simple. And again, I can either make a pattern or I can make a random, whoops, my stars are flying around. I could make a random pattern, whatever. But I kind of like that pattern, so then I would just simply start gluing it down. And actually this fabric is so thin that the glue is already seeping through, so I don't need a lot of glue. They're just going to stick like that. But depending on what kind of fabric you have. Okay, now if you don't have any fabric, what we're going to do is just take a piece of paper, construction paper, cardboard, or even a regular piece of paper will do. And if you're using paper, it's going to be a lot harder to put it over the lip. So you just want to make the circle with a pencil around the actual lid. Okay? And then you're just going to cut it out. And on this piece of paper, you could have already decorated it, or you could decorate it once you cut it out. Either way. But think about some creative design that you might want to have on this piece of paper. Or you might have decorative paper. Or you might have a card, an old card, a greeting card, or something like that that has a design on it. Depending on what you have at home, you can just have a lot of fun with these things. And then I have some Sharpies here. So I'm just going to kind of mimic the star thing that I did and draw little stars. And then if I wanted to, I could put some gold stars on there. I personally would probably stay with the silver, but I'm doing this just so that you can see it a little better. I'm thinking that the gold is going to come up and stand out a little bit more here. Or you could just write glow, remember to glow, remember to shine. Make it whimsical, make it fun. And of course, I bet you can figure out what happens next. We're going to put our lid on, and we're simply going to glue our decorative paper on. Again, you don't need as much glue this time as you do with the fabric probably. And then I would let that dry, and then any edging that's kind of overflow, I would just cut it nicely and neatly once it's dry. So there's your glow-in-the-dark jar, and these little things are going to be glowing inside. And so you could take this into a closet if you're doing it in the daytime so that you can run and see what it's going to look like right away. Or you can wait till night. The paint doesn't need a lot of time to get charged. You could just put it by a window, sunny window, and boom, there you go. So here are your glow-in-the-dark jars. You can do them small, medium, or large, and I hope you just have a lot of fun being creative and doing different effects with the paint and just enjoy everything. We do online classes at www.breckcreate.org, and you can also follow us on Facebook at Breckenridge Creative Arts. I hope that you join us for many more classes, both online and in person when we can. Have a great day.